Last Sunday, Billy went testing at Dragway 42 with his S10. The first pass the truck tried to go on the bumper. The second pass is this one here. Although the truck did go a new personal best, Billy says that the transmission seems to be slipping in high gear. So that's the first thing we tackled Monday morning, getting the truck out of the trailer and bring it in the shop to check everything out. I helped Billy get the truck unloaded, open the shop door, and then back the 55 outside so he can bring the truck in. While Billy's working on his truck, I need to run and go get some E85 to get ready to start dynoing the new engine up at Bob's. So the unfortunate part of being on E85 is this time of season it starts to get cold, and the E85 at your local stations goes from about E90, E85, somewhere in there, down to about E65, E70, which means that there is a lot more pump gas in the ethanol than during the hotter months of the season. The reason that there is ethanol in the pump gas is to help light the ethanol in your average low compression daily drivers. The problem is when you start to get a lot of that pump gas in the ethanol in the fall and in the winter, the abundance of pump gas causes problems with detonation and pre-ignition in high compression engines. Typically this time of year I try and fill up a couple of drums with decent pump E85 from summertime and then keep it. That way if we need it in the winter, I've got it. So today I'm going to go out and test some E85 at the local stations and see who has the best E85, and whoever that may be, I'll probably take a drum and start filling drums from that station. The first station I stopped at is this brand new Sheetz not far from our house. I'll be using this E85 tester from ATM Innovations. Now I know a lot of you probably aren't familiar with this procedure, but you fill up the test tube to the first line with water and then top the test tube off to the top line with E85. The ethanol will absorb the water, leaving only the pump gas at the top of the test tube. The ethanol content at Sheetz is only about 80%, and the gasoline at the top of the test tube didn't look too good. So next I stopped at the local Speedway station to try my luck again. I repeated the process of filling the test tube, shook it up, and the Speedway E85 actually tested to about 87% ethanol, so much better than Sheetz. But I've still got one station I want to try. In the past, I've always had the best luck of testing E85 here at this Kroger's. Typically in the summertime, the fuel here tests around E95, and that's exactly what it tested today. So I went ahead and filled up my 3 jugs and went back to the shop to check on Billy. So what'd you find out about the transmission?
It was low on fluid. We hadn't checked it since we put it together this winter. So you can see this is the 99 pass, but you can see it kind of flared a little bit right there.
Mm-hmm.
That's low on fluid. And then the next pass, say hello.
Oh.
Yeah, she just flared up to $8,000. And then it dropped to the finish line to 78. So this thing has a lot left in it. Pretty happy with it, honestly. I think 480s would have been very, very likely if it had all of its transmission fluid.
Well, that, and it wasn't into a 30-mile-an-hour head crosswind.
Yeah.
You know, I mean, it was terribly windy yesterday.
And we're not even on a lot of boost yet. That was 28 pounds max. On the last pass, and the 499 was 27 pounds with a 2-second ramp, leaving on 9. We could easily go up to 38 pounds, 40 pounds, somewhere in there, and be safe. So it's probably got another 500 horsepower left in it.
Oh gosh.
If I'm at boost level. It's probably making 1,300 now. Should probably make 18 at least.
So that brings us to Tuesday, one day closer to the last day that our cars will have to sit outside in the weather. My buddy Roger Dorsey came out this morning to get everything ready to pour concrete first thing Wednesday morning. He covered all the interior walls with plastic and made sure all the form boards were put up while I worked on moving everything that we don't need around the shop into the back lot. Meanwhile, the guys are getting ready to pull my Nova in the shop to get it cleaned up, and get it ready for the 427 to go down in it once Bob and I get it off the dyno, hopefully this afternoon. We also need to take all the turbo parts off of it, like the boost reference fuel pressure regulator that we need for the Blue S10 giveaway project. So Robbie's busy pulling all that stuff out of the Nova. Allison showed up to help do the shipping to get all the Malibu t-shirts shipped out right away, while Kenny unloads everything out of the race car trailer to give it a bath, with Scrappy's help of course. Finally, it was time for me to head north to go see Uncle Bob at the machine shop so we can dyno the 427 today and hopefully get it off the dyno and back to our shop tomorrow. Now this 427 that we build up at the machine shop is almost identical to the 421 in my Malibu, except the Malibu's 13-to-1 and this one's 11-to-1 with flat top pistons. So unlike the 421 in my Malibu and Tommy's 415, this 427 could actually run on pump gas if you turned the timing back far enough. What'd it make?
562
On the first pull.
on the first pull.
That's not too bad, it's still on gas.
Yes, sounds great.
I felt that we had a pretty good idea where the timing needed to be on this engine, and I turned it up 2 degrees from 34 degrees where we set it initially. Then it was time to make another pull. So the 2 or 3 degrees of timing that I added only picked us up about 2 horsepower. The plugs all showed a little rich, but a lot of that's from break-in on the dyno, letting it idle and warm up, putting heat cycles on the rings, and letting the engine break in. So far this 11-to-1 compression 427 has made more power on gas than my 421 made on E85. So Bob and I were pretty eager to make the switch from gas to E85 and find out what this thing was going to make on corn. Alright, so we went from 562 to 564 on gas. The 562 was the first pull. I added 2 degrees of timing. It picked up a little bit of power, cleaned up the the EGTs and the air fuel ratio. And then we switched to E85 at the exact same timing, and as you can see, it made more power, but the RPM dropped lower at max power. So that tells me that we're probably running a little short on timing, or it's a little rich. The timing's set at 37 degrees, so let's go ahead and pull some plugs out of it and see what they look like. Okay, so this is number 2 cylinder. These were fresh plugs. We've got 1 pull on them. It doesn't look bad. The timing mark on the strap looks just about right for cylinder 2. Let's pull some more. Okay, here's number 4. Again, it looks pretty decent. The timing to me looks about right. The heat in the plug is a little cold. Of course, this is a 10 NGK plug, so it's a nitrous, well, I wouldn't say it's a nitrous plug. It's a cold plug that we tend to use on nitrous. The timing looks pretty decent, but you can see it's definitely still a little rich. And the EGTs and the air fuel ratio confirm that. So might need to pull a little bit of fuel out of the carburetor. So I go ahead and pull the carburetor bowls off and decide to jet the carburetor down a little bit. Now I had previously jetted this carburetor for Ignite Red. So the rear of the carburetor actually had a Holly jet in it from where I had been messing with it before. Holley jet numbers are not the orifice size. Now Holley marks their jets with a jet number, and ATM generally marks theirs with the orifice size drilled into the jet. And thankfully their jet kits include the Holley jet number and orifice sizes to make it easier for you to make adjustments. We've taken 2/1000ths out of each jet all the way around. Once I put the carburetor back together and checked for leaks, it was time to fire the engine up and make another pull. Okay, so here's what we got. We made 570 at 6,076. I leaned the carburetor out 2 jet sizes or 2/1000ths on each jet, and it made 572, 2 more horsepower, but at a little bit lower RPM. But look over here. Torque went from 559 at 4766 to 562 at 4853. Bob and I actually made 2 more pulls. One pull with the timing turned up a little and timing turned down. The third and fourth pull both netted 569 horsepower. So we just set the timing back where it made 574 and 560 foot-pounds of torque. Wednesday morning, Roger Dorsey and his crew was here to get ready to pour concrete at the crack of dawn. They'll be using a pump truck today to pump the concrete into the shop so that we don't damage any of the PEX line for the radiant heating system. They started back in Vicky's office and poured backwards away from the east wall first. But once they got started, it was one concrete truck after another in and out of our driveway until they were finally done. So while Roger and the guys are back here at the shop finishing up that concrete, I'm headed back to Mount Vernon to pick up this 427. So hopefully we can get it brought back to the shop and start getting it put in my Nova tonight. Now if you remember back to when I built my 421, we put it on Bob's dyno and it made 562 horsepower and 530 foot-pounds of torque. But we don't race dynos. The Malibu goes 1050s at 3,800 pounds with 562 horsepower. This engine made 574 horsepower and 560 foot-pounds of torque. Only 12 horsepower more, but over 30 foot-pounds of torque, and made it with 2 points less compression. Which means that this engine can probably run on pump gas and cruise around just fine as long as we turn the timing back and don't get too greedy. So the next step is to put this engine down in my Nova and see how it runs on E85 down at the track. Then we may convert it back over to pump gas just so that we've got all our bases covered, just in case whoever wins this engine would rather have it tuned on gasoline rather than E85. One way or the other, it should make for some pretty interesting content. Bright and early Thursday morning, Roger came out and got all the concrete saw cut and sealed for us. The next step is to wait the 7 days to allow the concrete to cure before we put any cars in the shop. While we're waiting on that concrete to cure, we've got plenty of projects to work on, like getting this Nova fired up, hopefully today. Billy and Rob managed to get the engine set down in it last night, but we've got a few parts we need. You get me a parts list together?
Yeah, making sure I got everything here. I think there's going to be 2 fittings that I got that were wrong.
Uh-oh.
Yeah, I got dash 8s and we need 6s, and unless we can change those on the carburetor to 8s. But
10 demerits for you.
I know.
I got to get tires for my Malibu, and Billy wants to put Falcon on radials for this weekend. So as soon as you can get me a parts list, I'm headed to Jigs.
Yeah, let me finish putting this stuff together and make sure I got everything that I needed to get yesterday, and we'll get you on your way.
You got some stuff for me, Uncle Terry?
Parts, piece of parts, and a lot of tires. A lot of tires.
Did you get my tires mounted for my Malibu?
Yes, sir.
Nice.
Got those, and got some slicks, and got some. Any slicks? No, we don't have slicks.
No, I should have 2 sets of
Everything,
radials.
we got 2 sets of radials. I just had another guy come in, and we mounted 10 tires for him. So.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, Sean Young. And so we got your stuff in that mix too. So,
Very good.
Yeah, we're good. We're good. We're good.
Got all my stuff already bagged up I need.
Bagged up.
Very good.
All we need is some money, and we're good.
Oh,
Is Billy paying for this?
sure.
Okay.
I got a new set of radials mounted on my RC comps and picked up another set of radials for Tommy's Falcon, along with the fittings and parts that Robbie needs for my Nova. Thanks, Unc.
You bet. Thank you for coming in. I appreciate it.
As soon as I got in the truck, I got a text message from Uncle Bucko. He needs me to come back immediately to help him load up some firewood that he's cut up out behind my shop. I told him to make sure he cut these chunks of firewood long enough that I could pick them up with the forks so that we didn't have to load them by hand or get all the trash in with them using the bucket.
I thought you said you cut this stuff up big enough I can load it with the forks. You cut it up so damn short that they won't even cover the forks. Now I gotta pick it up with a bucket.
The big pieces. I don't want all the jackass.
As usual, Buckwheat has a problem following directions. If he would have cut this stuff long enough, I could have just sorted through all this crap with the forks, and he wouldn't have to take all the twigs and the leaves with him. I figure maybe next time he'll listen and at least measure how wide the forks are before he cuts his firewood. He was grumbling and raising hell the whole time I was loading this stuff on the truck, but I didn't care. I just pretended I couldn't hear him in the skid loader. I did the best I could to sort through all this crap and got most of the big chunks picked up with the bucket first. Eventually, we had to resort to hand loading. Obviously, Mr. Buckwheat wasn't too happy about that. Eventually, we got all that little stuff picked up, and then Jeremy needed to use the excavator to pull this last big chunk up out of the creek, which made June so nervous she couldn't take it anymore. After watching Jeremy chase that piece of wood around and beat it to death with the excavator, she jumped in the cab with me for safety. We eventually got all the wood loaded up and everything cleaned up so Jeremy could take the truck and the firewood where he plans to dump it off and set up the wood splitter where he's going to cut it and split it to size. But as usual for Buckwheat, simple jobs always turn into major catastrophes.
What the? A little hydraulic line. Why is it when I go to use everything, it's when it falls apart? Good grief.
By Friday morning, we finally had the Nova all put back together and got the hood bolted on. The exhaust system is hooked up and the mufflers are hung under the car. There's still a handful of things that we need to tidy up, but for the most part, it's ready. All right, so we finally got the hood on the car, and I guess it's time to fire it up, take it up the road, and see how it drives. Tuning an engine on the dyno for maximum horsepower and torque is one thing, but tuning for drivability is something entirely different. Thankfully, I've already done a considerable amount of drivability tuning on this carburetor on my Malibu. Since the two engines are so similar, it should run pretty decent, but there's only one way to find out. Although this engine sounds extremely rowdy at idle, just like the Malibu, The camshaft comes out of it right off an idle, and it cruises just like my Malibu. Even after the first 20 minutes of driving, the engine carries 90 pounds of oil pressure going up the road and is extremely smooth, thanks to the meticulous way that Bob assembles and balances these engines up at the machine shop. In just a few short weeks, Bob took a pile of parts that had never before been assembled and built a completely new engine.
Guys, I'm gonna tell you something. Whoever wins this thing is gonna be a happy camper. This thing runs and drives and cruises just as nice as my Malibu does. They're so similar, the way they drive, the way they sound. Actually, I think this one sounds better than my Malibu. I can't believe it.
I figured while I was out running around, I'd stop down to Mark's and pick up some parts he'd ordered in for me. And evidently, he heard me coming.
I can hear this one. I can't hear the 55 no more. So I can tell when you're coming down the road, the building's shaking.
That's that 427 we're giving away.
Yeah, exactly. Well, it shook the building.
This thing drives just like my Malibu.
Nice.
It really does. It drives so nice. It sounds amazing.
Sweet.
But it's like as soon as you throttle into it, it clears right up and cruises so smooth.
Really?
It's going to be difficult to take that out.
Yeah,
and
that's
give
what
it
I'm
away.
thinking. That might be hard. You sure you're going to think about that again?
I might
It's
have
already a done deal.
It's a done deal, I think.
Yeah, you might just, yeah.
The weather didn't quite cooperate this weekend for racing, so I spent most of the afternoon on Saturday cleaning up brush and scrap lumber and doing some grade work out next to the new shop. The boys tried to go race at Edgewater last night, but didn't have much luck. Tommy went out first round in the Falcon, and Billy won 2 rounds with the S10. The only problem was it got rained out, and the last pass Billy made, the transmission was slipping. So I helped him pull a transmission down out of it and finished editing this video right before dinner. So welcome back to the shop, everybody. I'm pretty excited about this engine giveaway. I haven't really said too much about this in the videos, but I mean, I think you guys can probably figure out Bob's working pretty much for us full time now. We've decided to take that on in order to help Bob slow down a little bit up there. Everybody knows his health hasn't been the best and he's been struggling with heart problems. So we're trying to get Bob in a position where he can slow down and change his dynamic out there at the machine shop. So it's going to allow us to do some really cool things like this 427 small block Chevy giveaway. There may be some other opportunities in the future where maybe we show up at somebody's doorstep and say, hey, we're here to pick up your engine and bring it back to the machine shop and freshen it up for you. In the meantime, Gina Rose and I are going to work on designing the shirt designs for the hoodies and the shirts for this giveaway for this 427 small block Chevy. And this weekend, I can't promise, we'll give more details later in the week, but it looks like we may be going to National Trail Raceway this weekend for the Jack's Wax Halloween Street Madness event. And that's going to give me an opportunity to send that thing down the track and see exactly how fast this thing's going to go. Even though it's got a power glide in it with a 350 gear and a nitrous converter, it's got really long legs in first gear. But it's going to give us an opportunity to, maybe see what this thing's capable of. And that way you've got some idea what it might do in your car. I mean, I think there's a lot of people out there that have mild street cars with 342 or 350 or 373 gear who would be interested to see exactly what this thing might possibly run in the quarter mile in your car. So we're going to do that this weekend.
I think that's the plan. That's the plan that I've heard so far anyway. So look forward to seeing everybody in the next couple of days here on YouTube. I'm going to do another video. I'm going to start on it probably tomorrow. And, you know, Turbo John has put up a video recently with some commentary on no prep racing and small tire no prep racing. Billy and Tommy just recently did a podcast. If you haven't subscribed to Word on the Streets, that's Billy and Tommy's podcast channel. And you can hear what those two have been talking about on there. And there's some pretty good stuff in that podcast, the recent one especially. But there's also some things that I'd like to add to the conversation that I think are very important that I don't see too many people talking about. So there's a lot of different dynamics to small tire no prep racing and street car racing. And I'll be honest with you, there's some pretty big changes coming, I think, if we want to keep this genre of drag racing alive and well. So look forward to that probably early this week. See everybody later.
Down the road, the building's shaking.
That's that 427 we're giving away.
Yeah, exactly. Well, it shook the building.